today on Arts24's weekly music show, one of the most successful British bands of the last decade.
Bonjour, je suis désolé, mon français est terrible. My name is Dan Smith. I'm here in Paris on France 24 to talk about my new project, Ampersand.
But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all? And if you
Bastille stormed the UK charts in 2013 with their debut album Bad Blood, spawning smash hits like Pompeii. 4 records later, band leader Dan Smith has taken a gap year of sorts, releasing a solo Bastille album that blends music with his love of history, called Ampersand. I sat down with him before his first of 7 special one-off shows around the world, right here in Paris. Dan Smith from Bastille, hello, and thanks for speaking to us on France 24.
Thanks for having me.
Now, quite an exciting day for you because you're kicking off this tour, this special 7 one-off shows around the world with your new project called Ampersand, which we'll delve into in just a moment. It's quite interesting to think about, age 15, you making music from the comfort or privacy of your own bedroom, and now you're playing for in front of sold-out crowds. Does it still feel very weird for you?
So weird. I think I feel very fortunate to, 10, 12 years on, still be allowed to make albums and make music and to tour. My band, Bastille, we're having the year kind of away from touring. And whilst the other guys are probably taking some well-deserved time off, I have been writing and finishing these songs, and we recorded the album in February in the UK. And it's mad, the album's now out and we're touring it. It's really exciting to bring this album and the stories behind the people in the album to life, on these stages in beautiful rooms around the world.
Is this real love? I'm falling in, keep falling in. Is this real love? I think it is. Do you think it is?
So let's talk about the album then. So Ampersand, as you mentioned, is released under the name Bastille, but it's much more of a kind of solo project of sorts.
Although it's not Bastille, it kind of fits under the umbrella, so we've called it like Bastille Presents Ampersand. There was never any expectation with this project. I wanted to just enjoy the process of songwriting and not think about what it's for or where it's going to go. Sonically, it speaks to loads of music like Sufjan Stevens and Anoni and Simon & Garfunkel and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young.
And the Beatles as well. There's one of the songs in particular, I really heard some Beatles in there.
Yeah, big Beatles influence. Like the Hofner bass sound that I love from a lot of the Beatles records is kind of all over this album, and there's a song that kind of sonically nods to Eleanor Rigby with this sort of just string quartet and vocals.
If it's gonna make you happy, if it's gonna set us free, if it's gonna hold us steady, then it's what we need.
I mean, I always loved writing story songs that delve into the lives of other people or use other people's lives as a kind of starting point to explore a topic. And so for me, like this whole album process was an excuse to just formalize that and make every song is about a pair of people or a person and an idea that relates to them.
Because as you mentioned, this album really shines a spotlight on some of the most fascinating people from the world of history, popular culture, and mythology. So I want to go through some of the songs and you can tell me a bit more the backstory to them.
Sure.
So starting with one of my favorite songs from the album, Blue Sky and the Painter. What's the backstory to that song?
So Blue Sky and the Painter is about Edvard Munch and his relationship with art and also his depression. And he was a fascinating guy, complex as everybody is. He spoke quite a lot about depression, and obviously it was very difficult to live with and really brutal at times, but he also credits it with his ability to make the art that he made. And I mean, some of his paintings are really beautiful, others look like they're filled with pain and anguish. I just was really struck by that kind of complicated relationship you have with this thing that is both makes your life so much more difficult than maybe it could be, but also it's the thing that kind of afforded him this, the ability to make this work that was is what defines him. I wanted to make that song feel quite kind of euphoric and grungy, whilst also nodding towards the fact that life can be fucking awful. Sometimes it can feel like that.
Is that a blue sky? Is that a blue sky? It's about damn time, yeah. It's about damn time. Is that a blue sky? Is that a blue sky? It's about damn time, yeah. It's about damn time.
Well, another song off the album is Intros and Narrators. Now, it's quite an interesting backstory to the filming of the video, a very impressive one-shot video. You were with the charity Greenpeace back in May to the Sargasso Sea, which is also known as the Bermuda Triangle. That must have been such an incredible experience. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, it was amazing. So Greenpeace invited me to go live on one of their boats, the Arctic Sunrise, in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle for a week. I guess they're running a campaign to try and raise awareness, and I think like lots of people living today, I feel like obviously really worried and concerned about climate change, but also quite paralysed by not knowing what to do. I'm quite a cynical person, so I was hesitant to go, obviously thinking like, well, how can I be useful and what's my place here? But I went into it to kind of learn about Greenpeace and about the the Bermuda Triangle, and I mean, what an amazing opportunity for me personally to be able to go there. Like, it was incredible. But then while we were there, we had a spare hour, like right in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. And there were these amazing wildlife photographers who were filming. And this guy called Tavish, who I was like, dude, can I borrow you and your camera for like 20 minutes? And I had this idea of sort of the video kind of starting with this person who happens to be me, kind of afloat at sea in their clothes with a life jacket on, and starting kind of as close as possible and pulling out to reveal that they're just afloat in the middle of nowhere. And I asked Tavish, the camera operator, if he'd be up for this, and he was like, yeah, sure.
I'm your friend, your love around your traitor. Take a walk with me through my mind, but I'm an unreliable narrator.
I heard that the captain of the ship wasn't so much on board.
At the end of the take, the captain of the boat, who happens to be a Ukrainian guy from Mariupol who's captaining this boat, he walks out and he's like, why is that guy from the band who's on our ship, why is he out quite far away at sea? And he was like, get the fuck back on the boat.
Had he thought you'd fallen in or something?
I don't know. I mean, he must have just been like, this is ridiculous. This guy's an unserious person. So I was like, they're like, get back on the boat. So I had to like swim back in.
Well, as you were saying, you really kind of shine a spotlight on these figures from history, pop culture, and so on. And most of them you've never met. These are people that you've just been fascinated by. Oh, yeah. But there's one song where it seems very personal.
Yeah, so the last song on the album is called Telegraph Road, 1977 and 2024. And my parents are from South Africa, and they grew up in the apartheid. So when they finished university, they were like a lot of their generation, they wanted to leave the country. So they ended up in the UK, which is where they had me and my sister. But before that, they traveled across America. And neither of my parents are poets or artists, but my dad wrote this book of notes and poems. And when I was 14 and started writing songs, and I was an idiot from London with nothing to say, my dad could see me struggling a bit. And so he gave me this book of notes and poems and said, if there's anything in here that you want to use, go ahead and use it. Just to be clear, we're not a family that like share poetry. It's not a thing. But yeah, I saw this. There was a poem that he'd written called Telegraph Road about a woman, an unhoused woman that he met, and was just thinking about her place in this huge, vast city. And at the time, the only singer I knew was my mum. So she is not a professional singer, but she, in South Africa, was a folk singer and basically paid her way through university playing folk gigs. And I got my mum back to sing the backing vocals. So
amazing.
It's really nice. And I think this whole album, for me, I very much set out to make songs about other people and to sort of deflect away. But bizarrely, it's like a lot of the most personal stuff I've ever made is also in this record.
And I guess that San Francisco's a lonely city, and you lost your life somewhere, maybe on Broadway, maybe some other street. And I guess that San Francisco's a lonely city, and you lost your life somewhere, maybe on Broadway, maybe some other street.
You've also made a kind of companion project to the album, which is a podcast with Emma Goose from the podcast You're Dead to Me.
Maybe we'll need to do some sort of poll at some point.
Yes.
To see who's the most not important.
Like, who did you know of 1 to 5, and then also who's your favourite 1 to 5, and then who
Who would you fight?
who would you fight? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would you or like who would you pit against each other 1 to 5?
To fight.
To fight. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Who'd you
a
like to fight?
darker use of the ampersand.
What was the most interesting story that you delved into with Emma, would you say?
There are just sort of too many good stories to mention. Oscar Wilde, the story of his life, which I kind of knew about, but hearing about his life in France and in Paris and when he died, and the trials and his relationships. Emily Dickinson, again, someone I thought I knew a lot about. There's this perception of her as a bit of a recluse, but she also wasn't. And the story of her life was dictated by people who had an agenda. And that's just really interesting to unpick with Emma. Like, what is it that's made us remember them like this? For me, it's been, as a kind of fan of pop culture and history and art, it's been such an amazing experience to get to sit with someone like Emma, who's got this really interrogative mind.
Now, to go back to the beginning, last year, Bastille celebrated the 10-year anniversary of your debut album, Bad Blood. Now, that album spawned many #1 singles, including Pompeii. Now, for the 10th anniversary, you actually collaborated with composer extraordinaire Hans Zimmer on a new version of it. What was that experience like?
Oh, it was amazing. I'm such a massive fan of Hans Zimmer, and I got asked to help work on the score for Planet Earth 3, which is like a big nature documentary series. So I worked with Hans and a couple of the composers that he works with, but also they asked if he could do a version of Pompeii for the closing credits of the show. As someone that grew up obsessed with film, obsessed with cinema, obsessed with film scores, to get to have his brain on our song was really, really amazing. And it was quite a nice way to sort of, I don't know, celebrate the song 10 years on, but with this totally new version.
Well, Dan Smith, congratulations on a very busy gap year of sorts. And thanks for speaking to us on France 24.
Thanks so much.
But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all? And if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like you've been here before? How am I gonna be an optimist about this? How am I gonna be